It's more so people panic after the baby's born because they don't think about how changes in their routine and life affects dogs and cats as far as stress and anxiety. Stress and anxiety are huge with dogs and cats, and they demonstrate those emotions to us in like super problematic ways. So for cats, we see a lot of inappropriate urination, and that's what stresses people out. So now they have a baby and they have a cat peeing all over the house. And these are things that we can try to prevent before the baby comes. So I think it's super important when you're first pregnant to start thinking about strategies to make your dogs and cats feel comfortable in the changing household. So that's kind of the biggest advice and topic I want to touch on today.
Super pumped to share this conversation with you. Hi, my name is Ashley Cooley. I'm the owner of Birth Baby Sleep and host of the Bringing Up Baby podcast. And I'd like to introduce you to my new friend, Janis Wall. Janis is a veterinary technician here in the Halifax area. She is pregnant herself. Baby's coming sometime pretty soon. And she has pets too. So personal experience, but also some professional experience in terms of helping you prepare your pets, particularly your cats and dogs, for baby's arrival. She gives some amazing advice, by the way, a lot of things that I never even thought of before, of course. And sometimes I guess what she's saying is that we're not really thinking about this enough in advance, that we really should be preparing our pets before baby comes. And before we get into it, I just want to mention that if you are in the Halifax area, that this Sunday on June 11th in Porters Lake Community Center, we're hosting the first ever Pregnancy and Parenting Expo. Myself and Maria Payne from Kindred Health Collective have teamed up to bring together a ton of professionals locally in the birth, baby, postpartum, child rearing world. And we're here to share a lot of info with you. We've got door prizes, a raffle basket with proceeds going to the Eastern Shore Family Resource Center, do a lot of great work in their community. And it's, some might be a bit of a drive out for some people, depending where you are in our area. But trust me, it's going to be worth it. There's so much to check out there. Head to birthbabysleep.ca and you'll be directed to all the info and also see who's all joining us. So anyway, getting back to this show, without further ado, here is Janis. Here's our conversation about not just introducing, but preparing your pets for baby. Hi, Janis. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, it's good to see you.
Yay. So before we get started, I wonder if you want to share do your own intro. Tell us your name and a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living.
My name is Janis Wall, and I am a registered veterinary technician here in HRM. I've been doing that for about 6 years, and it's been pretty fun, challenging, and wild. But now I'm 37-ish weeks pregnant and having to prepare all of my animals for the impending baby. And that's also been a pretty wild ride. It's something that doesn't get talked about a lot in the veterinary setting. I don't think people think to come and bring it up at the veterinarian, but there's a lot of good helpful tips and hints we have that can help. And so I've been working on that for the last few months of my life.
Awesome. And that's, of course, why you're here today, because we met in my prenatal classes. And I'm so glad that we connected on this, because this gets asked a lot. And I have cats, or I've had cats in my life and introduced babies to those cats. I feel like we've been pretty lucky in that sense of what it was to prepare. And maybe we'll get into some of those stories. But particularly when it comes to dogs, or some cats are different than other cats. Anyway, we're going to get into all of it because it is something that gets brought up to me as the baby is about to arrive and we're thinking, okay, this right now, your pets are your babies. And when we introduce another human, that can change things. So let's just dive into it. Can we chat about what are some of the things that expectant parents and pet owners are thinking about and are concerned about when it comes to their dogs or cats before the baby comes?
Honestly, I think people don't think about it enough. So you hear the common questions of, oh, the baby is going to be smothered by the cat in the bassinet. And there's like this
Yeah.
old, I don't think it's a wives' tale. I'm sure it happens where cats do jump in the cribs and the bassinets, and they're very large compared to a newborn, a lot of cats.
Mm-hmm.
Not often is it malicious intent, but it's not great. You don't want your cat sleeping on your baby. But I don't think that happens as often as people think it does. It's more so people panic after the baby's born because they don't think about how changes in their routine and life affects dogs and cats as far as stress and anxiety. Stress and
Mm.
anxiety are huge with dogs and cats, and they demonstrate those emotions to us in like super problematic ways. So for cats, we see a lot of inappropriate urination, and that's what stresses people out. So now they have a baby and they have a cat peeing all over the house. And these are things that we can try to prevent before the baby comes. So I think it's super important when you're first pregnant to start thinking about strategies to make your dogs and cats feel comfortable in the changing household. So
Mm.
that's kind of the biggest advice and topic I want to touch on today is how to disrupt their routine in a gradual way and create new routines and new ways of them existing in their house that's going to inevitably change with this small little thing we produce but who comes with lots of furniture and car seats and strollers and
Yeah, so true.
changes, right? So that's
Yeah.
the biggest issue is preparation months in advance.
That
So
makes so much sense. Whenever the tips that I would hear randomly that I would share when I was asked this question, but the main thing I would say is I recommend chatting with your vet about it because I'm sure they know more than I do. So the basically the one tip that I would often give is that when the baby is born, that we might have a blanket that is with the baby, and somebody brings that home and introduces that new smell, that baby smell, to the dog or cat or whatever before the baby enters the house
mhm.
and comes to the house. So that tip, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if that's a good one or not. But that was all that I was thinking about and that I knew of. So that it makes so much sense to actually prepare them in advance for a while so that it is more of a gradual change. Because, like, say you take your dog out for a walk first thing in the morning, every morning, that timing is going to change
Yep.
when you have a newborn, whether you like it or not. So
Mhm.
that sounds like makes so much sense that you have to prepare for that more than just like the day you bring that baby home.
Exactly. And I think I'll touch on cats first. Cats can be because their stress and anxiety behaviors are more unwanted for owners and more stressful for owners than the dogs ones typically are because like I said, it's the inappropriate urination, it's the scratching on all of the different furnitures or ruining the baby's items, it's the worrying about jumping into the bassinet, that sort of thing. So I
Mm-hmm.
think with cats it's really important to start early. So I have 3 cats and a dog, and I've had my cats 20 and 12 years for the other ones. So they've been,
Wow.
a fixture in my life for a very long time. So when I found out I was pregnant, the nursery baby room, that's kind of where the cats hung out for the last 8 years of their life. Like that was their space. That's where their litter boxes were. They were fed in that room. They had their furniture, their toys were in that room. They had free range of the house, but that was like their space. So I
Mm.
had to think about this months back and start with this slow transition. So it didn't just start with, okay, clean everything out, move it, and now baby's room is there. It was like this weekend we now move your litter box over here. And then when the
Mm.
litter box was moved, we supplied a great amount of like treats, and like I put out like a new scratching post by that litter box to be because they really like the scratching post and just to encourage them to go check out that new spot, right? Next
Mm.
weekend was here's where your feeding station is now going to be. And they got extra foods that weekend and they were super excited about it. And like one of them maybe was a little timid, so she would get more encouragement through treats to use that spot, right? And so it didn't all happen at once. And so then, when it did happen, we supplied other spots in the house for them to hang out. So they got like a new bed in a different room. where we're
Mm.
encouraged to hang out. So that's where I put like the catnip to encourage them to go in and like play with their new toys. And they got a new scratching post in another room. They got a new bed in another room. So like it sounds excessive and overkill, but these were all ways so I could ensure that there was no peeing, or like sometimes they'll inappropriately poop too in places.
Yeah, that's what my cat likes to do,
Yeah. So
sadly.
like it
But they
was,
have a way to let us know. That's
and that's what
definitely
they're
gonna let
doing.
us know.
That
Yeah.
is exactly what they're doing. So like the slow transitions and adding extra new beds for them to lay in, new perches in different windows, like trying to tell them that they're not kicked out of their spots, but encourage them to have new spots to go to, right?
That,
So
oh my gosh, just like the toddlers, just like bringing home
yes.
another human. You already have a child, and we're gonna prepare that baby for this one.
It really
That,
is very
yes.
similar, and it does
Yeah.
it requires that months in advance training. It's not the overnight thing that people think, but and I think like you said at the beginning, like talk to your veterinarian. I think it's super important for people to go to the vet in, again, months in advance, because once baby comes, you don't want to have like two beings to worry about, right? So go to the
Yeah.
vet, have these conversations. So make sure that your pet is like up to date on their parasite prevention. People don't think about internal parasites, so worms. Worms are zoonotic and can be passed to children, babies, humans. So, make sure your pets are being dewormed. If you feed raw food, you might not want to do that, especially while you're pregnant. There's so many bacteria and different worms that are killed through the cooking process that's not through the raw food process. So your animals are licking, kissing you, sleeping in your bed, have their dirty mouths all over the house. Like, just washing their raw food dishes isn't enough to keep you safe. So that's something, a lifestyle change also you'd want to inflict on your pets many months prior to that. But back to going to the vet, have the conversations. If you already know you have a stressful animal or kind of a cranky cat or, a dog that doesn't do well with change, talk to the vet about that. That way it's in their notes. You've had the conversations. So if something was horribly awful after the baby came and the animals couldn't settle, were super anxious, and like some cats do pose a threat to babies, maybe they do
Hmm.
need some medical help, and maybe pharmaceuticals is the way to go. That way you already had the conversation with your vet. It's not a new issue that you have to then deal with while having a newborn. Likely you
Mm.
can call, chat with your vet, and maybe find something to help your pet out. But
Hmm.
there are some really great over the counter like supplements and things you can do in advance that a lot of people don't know about. So there's some pheromone sprays for cats. It's like a wall diffuser called Feel Away. So if you put that, like when I moved my cats out of their room, I put the Feel Away diffuser in. You put it in their new spaces where you want them to be, where they're gonna be, and that helps calm them. It's just natural pheromones that they would get from like a mother cat to kittens, that sort of thing. And it's a
Interesting.
diffuser. Yeah, it just goes in the air. It lasts for 30 days. You can pick up refills, but that helps with the calming of the anxieties of the cats and kind
Is
of.
there any of that for adults?
I know,
I
right?
mean, that sounds awesome.
And it's pretty good. Like I noticed a huge difference right away because I have one really anxious cat, and my husband even said, "Wow, like she's not hiding anymore. She's coming around. Like she likes her new space." Because it was a stressful transition for me trying to move them from a spot they spent 8 years in
Mm.
out.
Hmm.
And for dogs, I would totally recommend for every dog because a lot of people don't recognize their dog has some anxiety issues because their dog hasn't had a huge change like this before. So like
Yeah.
preemptively, I would say there's again a pheromone collar for dogs. It's called Adaptil, and you put it on for 30 like every 30 days, and it does emit pheromones for them as well. So that one is on them all the time, and it does take the edge off a little bit. So if you are like, this is a huge change in their life, right?
Mm.
So it's kind of best to do these things like 2 or 3 months in advance to get
Okay.
them used to the pheromones and kind of bring down their base level of anxiety. And then there's some great probiotics for dogs and cats that help again with calming, because their brains are totally run by their bellies, just like, men. So here's a good supplement called Calming Care, again, over the counter, all natural supplement, just goes on their food. And this is something you would do 8 to 12 weeks in advance and continue to do after baby arrived. And it's just, these are like extra lines of defense that you could have on board to try to prevent any issues from arising when baby came, right?
Cool.
So
Yeah,
there's,
it's not that everybody has to do all of these
right.
things, but it's that there are different options and different
Yep.
things out there that might actually help.
Yeah, and so having the conversations in advance with your veterinarian, getting that, in your head ruminating, then you can figure out what might be right for yours. And again, preparation is key. Many, many months before, make all of these changes.
Mm.
So,
Are there, if we talk about dogs for a second, are
mhm.
there particular breeds that maybe a lot of people have that we want to think that might be something they might already know? Because we know that there are breeds that are more kid baby friendly than others, and so some maybe needing to take extra precaution over more. But I guess it might come down to just like your pet
Yeah,
and talking to your vet about what those options could be.
it's totally your pet, and I can say this from experience of working in the vet industry. People think, all golden retrievers, family pets, those are fabulous family pets. There are a lot of golden retrievers that are pretty high strung, anxious, and don't actually do well with more than one person in their life. So it is just dependent on your pet. I would say to people, like, take those few months before the baby comes and really kind of analyze your pet. So the little intricacies that don't bother you and that you had to learn how to adapt around your pet may become an issue with baby, right? So
Mm.
you have to be more aware of them when the baby comes. A lot of people talk about, like, a lot of people talk about desensitizing your dog to, like, touch. So, touch his paws all the time, touch his ears, take toys from him, interrupt him when he's eating, all this stuff. But the problem with desensitization of anything, let alone a dog, that is like a very long and lengthy process. So it's not something that really realistically can happen before baby comes. So I feel like sometimes it sets people up for failure, because they're like, no, he's great when I touch his paws, like everything will be fine. I would honestly never go by that, and I would just say that your pets and your baby do not have to be friends. They do not have to be best friends. They need to coexist safely in your house. That's it. And you want to
Good point.
minimize the stresses that they have, so they're not showing you unwanted behaviors that then are going to stress you out. But nobody has to be best friends. So I wouldn't spend my time desensitizing, your dog to feet touching if they really hate it, because it's going to be kind of a losing battle, because a lot of that sense or anxiety is really deep seated, and it's something that you would need to work really long on. So it's more so prepping your dog for the routine changes. So, like you said,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
get a 7 a.m. walk every day, you might need to start variations with the walks. Or you hire a dog walker too. So you form that relationship before baby comes. Get someone who has, built a rapport with your dog and yourself, and use that person, even if it's just a couple times a week, for your dog to get extra enrichment and get out of the house and not be stressing you out, because the dog feeds off of your stress too.
I love that you
you know
brought that up because that's something that I always chat about. Like this podcast is the bringing up baby podcast, but what matters most are the parents bringing up the babies, that
exactly.
they are healthy and happy. And so, just like you said, if you're going to be anxious and worried, that babies feed off that, your dogs feed off that, everybody's feeding off that. Okay, so it's really a lot about the routines that you have with your dog, especially because they'd be more up for that kind of thing than
Yeah.
cats. um Less on the, or not worrying so much about the quote unquote desensitization, that doesn't seem to be something that is even fathomable in this kind of light. And so we did talk about, or I mentioned the whole blanket scenario. Is that a good strategy for like the day of or the day before you're going to bring the baby home?
it
And are there any of those little things as you're bringing the baby home that you're thinking about with your pet?
It totally could be for sure. One of my biggest like tidbits of advice would be when bringing baby home, you want to make sure that maybe your dog was walked and had some enrichment that day. So if
Mm.
you and your partner were at the hospital and your dog was home, you want to be sure that you had someone, neighbor, friend, dog walker, daycare, whatever, you had someone do something with the dog that day. Because if not, you have a whole bunch of pent up energy because the dog's going to be so excited to see you, and then you're going to have a baby that you're trying to move out of the
Mm.
way of said jumping happy dog. And then the first thing the
Mhm.
dog's going to do is demand to be walked or played with, and you just got home from the hospital. So that would be my first tip, is the day you're planning on arriving home with baby, be sure your dog had some sort of enrichment, whatever that looks like for your dog, whether that be walks or played with or just someone spent time with them. Be sure that happened that day, just to, again, those anxieties of the dog are a little bit lower. They're still going to be excited to see you, but
Yeah.
maybe not as demanding and then again stressing you out. The other thing I would say is that your partner or yourself or somebody goes in to meet the dog first. So baby and the other spouse stays in the car, and then you go in, meet the dog, do your usual routine. Everybody has like a whole way, they say hi to their dog after work and give them treats or whatever. And do that first so that your dog realizes, hey, it's you, you're home, everything's fine. You didn't abandon me, you're back. Then bring baby in. And with bringing baby in, it's more of a management scenario, I would say. So again, you don't have to be like, hey, dog, look, here's your new best friend. You don't need to
Right.
do that. I mean, people are really like excited to do that, I think.
Mhm.
But that's not, the dog's not going to see it that way. Like, the dog doesn't have the emotions we have attached to, like, oh, you have a new baby human in your life. No, they're
Right,
just going to
right.
be like, there's a thing. I'm going to have to jump and I'm going to have to sniff and I'm going to have to fixate on. So just bringing baby in and not immediately bringing it to the dog, more so providing treats, positive encouragement. That whole like positive reinforcement thing is super important with dogs. You give them tons of treats for good behavior. So when they're not jumping, you're holding baby and they want to see baby, you wait until they're calm, give them tons of treats, reward their calm, then maybe they can have a sniff at baby. Then if they have a short sniff at baby and it goes well, more treats, more positive encouragement, that sort of thing. But then leave it at that. We don't need to spend, 10 minutes trying to
Mm.
introduce
Mhm.
dog to baby. It is again with the gradual. Everything's gradual with baby, right?
Mm.
Just gradual introductions with dog and baby. So if you don't have a
Beautiful.
partner or spouse, I think it's harder. I really do. If you can get a friend or again, like dog walker person, someone that your
Mm.
dog is close to come help you bringing baby in, I think that's super important because I think it would be stressful just on the mom to do all of it by
Sure.
herself.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, just like if you had another child and you're single parent, we're bringing home another child. We
Yeah.
want someone to take over or take care of that other child a little bit
Yeah.
more too, so you can do that. I'm now realizing that I'm pretty sure what made my cat okay with bringing home our kids was I was I was like so excited to bring home the new baby each time that I would get all the clothes out and do the laundry and have the bassinet, have the pack and play in the living room because we were going to spend most of our time down here. So basically, baby had a closet here. So I had that stuff out for a little while. I wouldn't say it probably wasn't 2 to 3 months, but again, not that it is all the same for everybody and has to be perfect, but I of course took the pictures of my cat in the pack and play, like, oh, cat thinks it's for him,
Yep.
like, but that's part of them getting used to the new things and
It's perfect.
seeing what's like this is new stuff going on.
It
Yeah.
is absolutely perfect. And it's a way to figure out what their behaviors are going to be when they come. So I've had the bassinet out for a few months. Cat didn't bother, wasn't in the bassinet, and I'm like, this is great. How fabulous. After it became like a fixture in the bedroom, Cat was like, oh, I could sleep here. So then now I have to be like, all right, so this is something I have to be aware of. Like, so it gives you time when you have their furniture and things out, it actually gives you time to figure out how the cats are going to interact with it. So, like, when I
Yeah.
did my baby's room, the first thing the cats went in was started like scratching up the rug and the chair. So immediately I go to the store, I buy a scratching post. Now they go in and there's a scratching post, so they use that, and they're not going to start taking out their little angry nails on all of the baby things, because then I worry like,
Yeah.
hey, you're going to jump in the crib and not scratch the baby purposely, but like play with the baby's stuff and sort of like that. So people do look at me
Mm.
and go, you have a scratching post in your baby's room? Yeah, because it's part of their coping mechanism, right?
Yeah, it's deterring
So
them for
it really
sure.
is, and and then they can come in the room and hang out with me, and they have something for them in that room. So I really do. I really think the more you can get them used to the furniture and all the changes in advance, the better time you're going to have for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So even with the dog in the car seat, so you want to get your car seat installed. I think they say like a month in advance, just so you're used to having a car seat in your car in case you go early, so you
Yeah.
get used to it. But that way it's in your car, so now your dog has to learn, hey, I used to lay across this seat or whatever, right? So
Right.
it's there. Your dog can sniff it, realize, okay, this is permanent, this is going to stay, this is a
Mm-hmm.
fixture in my space now, sort of thing. So I think that's another thing to get important. Or leave your stroller out, because the first walk you want to go on, you're going to want to take your dog with your baby. And if you
Mm.
like start unfolding this big gigantic stroller and your dog's like, what is that? This is a
Do you
weird
expect me to get in there?
contraption.
What is
Yeah,
happening?
like, and they're pretty like bulky and loud. And if they've
Mm.
never seen it before, I think that poses more of an issue for, again, it's minimizing the owner and the mom's stress too, right? So if your
Mm.
dog is used to this stroller being out and wheeled around the living room, they're not going to bark at it anymore. They're going to go, cool, we're going for a walk. And again, baby dog bonding time, the thing that people really want, going for a walk with your dog, that'll bond. You don't need your dog to be laying up in next to your baby in the crib or the pack and play or whatever, right? There's other ways
Mm.
for them to bond.
Mm. Gosh, so it's just like adults. It's just like people,
It
isn't
really
it? Like
is.
we see the Instagram stories with the little puppy and the little newborn in the crib and how sweet that looks. Number one, very unsafe. Number
Mhm.
two, not appropriate. Number three, probably just for this reel, and who knows what's going to happen after that. So we're
Yeah.
not going to try to repeat those
I
things.
cringe
But
so much because I think
yeah,
people think they need their pets to be best friends with the babies.
and I'm sure they want to. Like, why wouldn't you want everybody getting along all the time? But siblings don't, so we can't
Exactly.
expect
We need
another
boundaries,
species to.
boundaries.
Yeah.
That's it. They can
Yes.
all coexist and be friends, but they don't need to be in each other's spaces, because that's when you do run into issues. And so with newborns, it's not going to be that big of an issue, right? But
Yeah.
once your baby starts crawling, moving around, flinging their hands, and that's when you
Pulling at tails. Yeah.
exactly. So
Going for
that's
it.
when you have to manage things. And it's all management. It is all management. But at
Mm.
least if you can get them used to babies' things and items before they come home, there'll be less stress on you as a mom, I think, or
Yeah.
new mom.
Okay, so yeah, let's kind of try to summarize those. So it's getting them used to some of the smells, some of the items
Mhm.
that you're going to be introducing, the stroller, the car seat, the bassinet, those kinds of things. Perhaps some dietary things, some products that you mentioned with the pheromones that could be
Mhm.
helpful for some animals. And then it was about those gradual changes when it comes to the activities, the routines that you do,
Yeah.
maybe where they're sleeping or those walks in the morning or those kinds of things, and trying to change things up. Or, like you said, finding a dog walker, going to the doggy daycares, like introducing those kinds of things to help them get their energy out if you're not always going to be up for doing that
Yeah.
with the newborn.
Because if you know you can't keep their routine the same, it is beneficial for the few months prior to baby coming for them to get used to a new routine, right? So it's it's all about managing their expectations. So for cats, like if you change the litter box every day, unfortunately, you probably have to continue changing it every day, or they're going to go, that's too dirty. I'm going to pee in your bed.
Yeah,
So,
they are very particular, those guys. Oh, yeah.
exactly. So I always say to people, like, if you need you, that's one thing you need to do. But for feeding with cats, this is one of my most favorite tips I was ever given, and it works so well. Cats, you can use an automated, sorry, with cats, you can use an automated feeder. And so you can set 3 different meals a day for however many cups you want it to feed them a day. And then it goes off like clockwork. You don't have to get up and feed them. They
Mm.
People say, "Oh, it's our bonding time. My cats love when I feed them." Cats just want to get fed. They really just want food. Like, your bonding time can
Yeah,
be when you give them treats, like, for sure. But they just want to
yeah.
get fed. So if you have an auto feeder set up and they're used to this auto feeder 2 or 3 months before baby comes, they're going to be so happy, and everything's going to go much smoother for you because you don't have to remember after you just put the baby down at 5 a.m. and you maybe want to go back to sleep. Cats aren't going to be
Ah,
screaming at
yes.
you at 6:30 for food.
Meowing at the door, whatever it
Yes,
is.
exactly.
Yes.
They're going to go sit by
Yeah.
their auto feeder and say, "Hey, I have an auto feeder, so I'm just going to wait for this robot to feed me." And it works so well. Like, it changed my life. It's changed
That's
my life.
genius.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
I could see how that might change my life now. Maybe I should go get
you
one. I
should
love that.
really do that. It has taken all of my stress away.
If we can take one thing off of new parents' plates, I mean, no pun
Exactly.
intended, that would be a good one. That would be a good one.
Exactly. Because, like I said, unfortunately, you can't change the litter box habits. You have to kind of keep up with that, or you're going to probably have some angry cats. But
Mm-hmm.
feeding, you can make that a whole automated thing that you don't have to do.
Let's hope partners or somebody else was changing those litter boxes, because that's not something you want to do as a pregnant person either. So let's get that person to continue to have that
Exactly.
job for a long time. That's
Yes.
fine. My husband's still on that duty,
Oh,
just
that's
in case.
lucky.
Um, he doesn't know that it had to end, or it could have ended. But anyway, we'll just leave it
That's
at that.
funny.
Janice, this has been a really enlightening and helpful conversation. I know it's going to be helpful to so many expectant families, and I'm definitely going to be sharing this through all of our prenatal classes. But is there anything else, any other resources or things that we can direct people to if they want to know more or read up more on this or anything?
Yeah, I definitely have a couple articles that I can send you to link in the show notes. But it's a fabulous website if you have any sort of veterinary questions in general. So, any questions about your dogs or cats, it is made for the public. It is supposed to be a resource for the clients to understand. It's called Veterinary Partner. You can Google it. It is a great website. So, even things like you want to learn more about anxiety in cats, they have articles on that. So they have a couple articles on how to smooth transitions with newborns and your pets. So I will send you those. But this is a
Okay, great.
fabulous resource for people.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely link to those in the show notes, because sounds like it's got more than just what we were talking about too.
Yeah.
So you never know when you're going to need more info. Great. Well, thank you so much, Janice. And looking forward to hearing your big news when your little one arrives. And I'm sure it'll be a smooth transition pet wise,
Let's hope.
at least. Yeah. But thanks so much. I really appreciate you doing this today.
Thank you.
If you're looking for more information or support along your parenting journey, check out birthbabysleep.ca. That's where you're going to find prenatal classes, postpartum and new baby resources, and sleep support during the childhood years. You can now join our Bringing Up Baby community membership as well, which has tons of additional benefits to helping you through all kinds of sleep challenges and transitions, navigating the transition to solid foods, and even your transition through early parenthood. If you have any questions, just send them my way. Lastly, but certainly not least, if you got something out of this episode or our show in general, leaving a rating or a quick review goes a really long way to helping others find us. So please consider leaving one. That's all for now. I'm Ashley Cooley, and we'll see you back here next time.